For the longest time, I've wanted to start an actual survival world. Not just one of those 2-week Minecraft phase worlds, but an actual world that I can look back on in a few years and be proud of. I've tried it before, but something always seems to get in the way, whether that be motivation or just things coming up to take away my fixation on the game. So I'm starting fresh. With my mind full of plans and aspirations, this world will be my creative outlet to make things that I'm actually proud of and at the same time help me develop my skills in building and just Minecraft in general. There's still things I'm yet to learn about this game and new techniques I'm yet to discover despite my years of playing. And honestly, I'm just really excited to play Minecraft for fun again. In the time I have for this video, I have a few goals that I hope to achieve to begin thriving in our world. First, of course, is gathering a few basic necessities, followed by finding a spot, and then building our starter home. To end, I'd like to gather villagers and set up a little area to prepare us for the future. I have a load of plans for this series, and I hope to see you along for the ride. But that's enough talking about it. It is time to actually begin our new journey into this Minecraft world. After a little bit of beginning resource gathering, it's finally time for my second favorite part of this game. Behind building, of course, which is mining. With some music on in the background and a nice shader pack, mining goes from a monotonous task to actually being a peaceful experience. I found that it's generally not common for people to use shaders in caves, but I think it adds a nice touch. Well, except for whatever this is.
I don't think it's supposed to be doing that.
I spent a little while longer gathering the rest of the resources that I would need for a while. I like to do a lot of my early game mining at once to get it all out of the way for later. At some point, I ended up stumbling across a mineshaft, which I spent the remainder of my mining time in, looting the chests and having a few close run-ins with creepers. I also got turned around more than once, but it was all worth it in the end for my second diamond of the trip. By the end of it, I was up 5 of them, and ready to explore to find a place to build my first home. And it honestly didn't take long to find the absolute most perfect place to start building.
So I think I've spent a little time coming up with a plan for what I want the building to look like. And I think I want to go for like a log cabin kind of thing. So I will probably need spruce, probably some more deep slate. But I think that's the plan, is to make a little log cabin facing out over the water, like a little cottage type thing.
And so, that's exactly what I did. I first headed out to find some spruce, which would be the major portion of the build. I ended up getting pretty lucky, finding spruce forest right across the lake. I cut down a few trees for some saplings, and spent a little bit of time gathering food before making my way back. When I returned, I spent some time replanting them into a big tree to be a bit more efficient. In between trees, I was also mining a bunch of stone and deep slate, melting down the cobble I needed, and just generally preparing for my first decently sized build. A lot of the time, I actually enjoyed the monotonous grind of resource gathering. As boring as it may seem, it's honestly quite relaxing to just absently mine blocks. With some music or a podcast in the background, it can be a really calming activity. It took a while, and I ended up needing to gather a lot more resources during the actual building, but I think it was worth it in the end. And after an hour or so of resource gathering, I finally had enough to place the first few blocks and begin constructing our beautiful starter cabin. And so, without further ado, enjoy the time lapse. I find it fairly difficult to build in survival, especially without a plan using something like Lightmatica that I built in creative beforehand. And even after the building of this house, it hasn't really gotten much easier. I started this with a vague idea in mind, that basically just being the shape I wanted, and the log idea for the walls. With this in mind, I kinda just started building, and I honestly really like the way it ended up turning out. That being said, it's not a massive project, and I'll still definitely be using tools like schematics in the future, but this was a refreshing challenge compared to what I'm used to. That's all from me though. Enjoy the rest of the time lapse. And with that, the house is fully completed. I'm really happy with the way it turned out, and even during editing, I still don't think I would change a thing on it. I ended up making a little storage room to get the chests inside, as well as doing a small bit of decorating with the necessities. During building, I actually ended up enchanting an almost max pickaxe, with Fortune 3, which was an amazing bonus. But, without too much celebration time, I quickly moved on to the basement. Once again, I had no plans going into it. My interior decorating method generally tends to just be spam decorations that I think would look nice, using techniques I've picked up over the years. I definitely wouldn't call myself very good at interiors, but I think it turned out alright. You're gonna see this carpet technique used a lot throughout this channel. One of my friends showed it to me once, and I've simply never gone back. It just looks too nice, and it just ties the room together perfectly. I ended up splitting the room based on functionality and just decoration. I think it ended up a lot better this way, and considering I put 2 entrance doors, it makes the most sense. I struggled quite a bit with the storage room since there was such little space, but I ended up keeping it pretty simple. It's just a plant, a shelf, and of course the carpet.
Alright, the basement is all done. I am actually really happy with the way it turned out. I do feel like this part is a little empty, but I just kind of ran out of details to put. I wanted to throw a couch somewhere or something, but it just didn't feel like I had the right space for it. I really like the way this room is, the little storage and like maintenance room. I still haven't gotten the item frames on these, but I will. And we got the little bar over here. There's nothing in these yet, but I'll probably... Actually, I can do that now. I want to do some sort of bamboo chairs here, but I don't have... Or scaffolding, but I don't have scaffolding yet. So that's going to have to do. And we got this little storage room back here. There's nothing actually in any of these, but it's here. But yeah, I really like the way it turned out.
My next goal was to start the very exciting adventures of gathering villagers. And after gathering up some rails, I headed over to a village that I passed on the journey of finding a house. Without too much struggle, I managed to get 2 cartographers into rails, and then I began the long and arduous task of bringing them all the way back to the house. And with that, the villagers have been successfully moved to their new forever home. I spent a while carving out an entrance to bring them down to the dungeon, I mean basement, and after making a small track to send them down, I dug out a fairly large room to house the systems I wanted to make the whole process just a little bit easier. The first step in my plan was to make the actual breeder, and with a fairly simple design that I've used quite a few times in the past, it was completed in just a few minutes. The design basically just consists of a small tube to hold the new villagers that have been dropped in, with 4 beds placed on top of that for the 2 main ones, finally topped off with some trapdoors and carpets to hold them in place. The hardest part is moving the actual villagers, and even that is simple with them just going right in. The last thing is the transportation system, which is just a few powered rails and a dispenser to send out the minecarts. My original plan was to have a daylight sensor dispensing food every morning, which is why I went to the Nether for quartz. But as of now, this still hasn't happened, so we got the old lever instead. After filling it with bread and a little bit of creepy spectating to make sure it worked, we had our first baby. And after a little bit of time spent tidying the room, I really just couldn't stand looking at the stone walls anymore. It was time for the curing system. The design I used was far from perfect, but it'll do for us since there's not really a whole lot of villagers I need right now. Then came the hardest part of it yet, getting a zombie. Finding one to take an item, since I didn't have a name tag on me, took in itself probably 10 minutes. But the tricky part came from trapping it. Now, I know I definitely could have been smarter about this, but we don't talk about it. You can just watch my stupidity. So now, we have a full iron zombie, which, fortunately for us, was the perfect opportunity for an upgrade. I also ended up filling the breeder up with potatoes, since I had plenty more of those, so it was just generally more efficient. And after a little bit more room tidying and a quick tour, it was time to head into a different little project. That being an iron farm. I won't need a whole lot of iron for the beginning of the game, but having this running behind the house constantly will help out a lot in the long run. Now, I'll most likely have to upgrade to something better in the future, but for now, this will do just fine. And that's the farm done. It's very small, as you can probably tell, but in the time between me completing it and starting recording again, I already had 27 pieces. My next plan was to head to the Nether to find a fortress, and gather all the resources we would need for a while. I made a bow and some extra iron tools just in case, and headed in. The shaders made it pretty hard to see, but I quickly found a bastion a few blocks away from my portal, and spent some time carefully looting it. I ultimately decided not to risk getting the middle chest yet, seeing how close it was to the portal, and headed out to find a fortress instead. The walk through the Nether was honestly quite beautiful, with the shaders really adding to the ambience of it all. Walking around felt as equally eerie as it was dangerous. Although that didn't stop me from taking little caution while traversing. After honestly not that long of exploring, I finally came across the fortress, and my god, the view is beautiful. After a little staring, I built over and headed in, quickly finding a spawner right next to the entrance, and boxing it in to farm some blaze rods. I use this method pretty much every time, and it honestly saved me quite a bit. All you really do is completely cover the spawner, leave a little doorway to run out of, and you're good to farm however long you need. I ended up stopping at 23 and getting one more on my way out. This will be more than enough for our needs for now, and after a short walk back to the portal, we were done. Not 100% sure why I ended up here, but it's all good. Next on the list was villagers. For some reason, I lost a lot of footage here, but all it really did for a while was cure up a couple Fletchers, make a string duper, and grind out some more emeralds. I'm not sure how generally accepted string dupers are, or just dupers in general, but with the new villager system, I needed some way to make emeralds other than the one stick for an emerald trade, which is what I used to do. So string it was. A cat also ended up spawning in here from all the villagers, so I grabbed some fish and tamed it. I then spent close to half an hour trying to get mending. It's usually difficult, but I don't think I've ever had as much trouble as I did in this world. I finally got it for 20 emeralds, which I took even though it could definitely be better. And after curing, I got him down to a nice solid 1. And that's villagers done for the time being. It's obviously not a very pretty room, but it's mostly for utility anyways, so it doesn't really matter. I ended up getting a bunch of mending and unbreaking, mending for 1 emerald and unbreaking for 16. And after enchanting my armor and tools with a mix of the enchantment table and the books, it was time for the last project of the video, that being the rest of the house. And that's it. That's the whole house completed. Like I said during the basement, I'm not the greatest with interiors, and there's definitely a few things that could be improved on, but I think it turned out cozy enough. I'm really happy with the enchantment area in the kitchen, and I think they're definitely my favorite part of the whole house. Also, the autocrafter I learned works very nice as a stovetop. I still gotta add a few more little details like plates, but other than that, it's pretty much good. And of course, I had to add the Christmas tree, since this will be coming out just a bit before Christmas. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have made it to the end of the video. Completing the full house wasn't originally part of my plan for the episode, which is why it's at the end of the video, but I'm really happy I decided to do it, because now we can move on to something completely different next video, which I'm thinking will end up right around here, where I have some plans to make a couple houses for our dear villager friends. All in all, I'm really happy with the start of this world, and I have many big plans for what I want to do with it. So stay tuned. If you've made it this far, thank you. This is my first ever video, and also my first time editing literally anything, so I appreciate you sticking around long enough to see my journey through it. This video took me many months of trying things, scrapping them, and then trying new things before finally settling on something that I was somewhat proud of. It's not perfect, but it's a start, and I hope you enjoyed it regardless. Feel free to leave any suggestions or criticisms that you may have in the comments, as I would love new suggestions on ways to improve for next video. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.